Hello, and welcome to Ideas Live. I'm Karen Anderson, a co-host along with
Anne-Marie Oomen.
Thank you very much for being with us today. We have an interesting and very important topic, which is, well, we're calling it public service, by which we mean the willingness of people to participate in local and regional government, not just as voters, but as officers and leaders, and how critical this is. So we want to talk more about it with each other and with our guest.
I'm always amazed when, I mean, maybe I shouldn't be because I've taken charge of things before in my life, but I'm always amazed given the difficulty and the challenges of government, even local government today, when someone does step forward.
Oh.
Because they seem to be putting themselves at certain social and serious risks. You know, the way things work today doesn't seem like as much of this is a gift to my community, but rather I'm going to put myself in a position to be criticized.
Yes, exactly. And I was in a casual group recently, and people were talking about elections, and someone said to me, well, maybe you ought to run for commissioner or something. And I said, oh no, why not? And I said, I don't know that I could make myself that vulnerable.
Right, could bear the scrutiny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, not to mention the fact that you have to be enormously well educated, hopefully, about everything to do with your sphere of influence and all the ordinances and the history. I mean, it's a huge responsibility. Plus, as you say, it can be really uncomfortable.
Right. I've often thought about what is it that would nurture good leadership, and would help us find the people who not only were truly concerned about their communities and their states, but would give them the education, you know, that they needed in order to serve properly. When you think about, for example, it's been in the news lately, foreign service people who go through enormous amounts of education to study their country of service or the area, and I think, we want good leaders. How are we preparing them?
Yes, and encouraging
on the
and
local
supporting
level.
them.
Yes, right,
Yes.
right, and that education piece of what do they actually know about the areas in which they're going to lead. Sometimes people ride on personality, and then sometimes people are very knowledgeable but don't have a showy personality, and so they don't always succeed in persuading a voter. So it's a really complex situation.
Yes, and I'm so glad that we have a guest who knows a lot about this and has been willing to take on this challenge.
And we are so happy to have him with us today.
So stay with us, we'll be right back. Hello, I'm Karen Anderson, and welcome back to Ideas Live. Our topic today is public service, which is really important in today's world. And we're so grateful to have an exemplary example of devotion to public service. Jim Carruthers, Mayor of Traverse City for a number of years now, recently reelected. Welcome.
Yes, thank you, Karen.
So pleased to have you here.
Anne-Marie, for inviting me in today.
This is such a fraught topic for me. I think sometimes I can interview guests who do things that I can imagine myself doing. But I can't imagine myself doing this. And so I have a special reverence for your willingness and capability in this arena to jump into public service, knowing, and you've done it more than once, so there must be something in there that you like. But start out a little bit with how you were originally inspired to be part of the public arena.
Well, I was raised in a family that believed in public service. My grandfather was the mayor of the town I'm from in Ohio for 43 years. My mother was a perpetual volunteer because, you know, we grew up in the time when our dads went off to work and our mothers stayed home and took care of kids, and they kept themselves busy through volunteerism. So we were always encouraged to support some effort in our community, if it was raising money for the hungry, or you know, helping your local humane society, or volunteering at your community youth center. I mean, I used to be behind the lunch counter at my school serving food because it was a volunteer activity. All my friends thought I was kind of weird, but it was like we were kind of expected to do those kind of things. So I was raised in an environment of, you know, being active in your community, understanding your community, you know, working. I mean, we came from a time when you moved into a town, you took a cake next door, you took cookies.
That's right.
I mean, you tried to engage and try to be more involved in your community. Times have changed a lot. I think Traverse City in general is still pretty kind and nice. I mean, we're super lucky in Traverse City in our region that we still have a really nice place to be. We have a lot of great people that live here that still care about the character and the charm that make our communities great. So it was just my family heritage, which led me to eventually moving here. I'm permafudge. I mean, we were a family that's been vacationing here since the 30s, and I eventually moved here in '89 from the Boston area. I grew up around New York City. I'm from Ohio, but had a lot of good influences from growing up on the East Coast and around urban areas. But that landed me here to take care of my grandmother one summer, and I ended up staying for the winter. And some people say, "Why did you stay?" It's like, I'm not sure sometimes, but especially when it's 12 degrees outside or whatever it is today. But I stayed because I believed in our environment. I stayed because of the water and the natural resource that we have to protect it. I stayed because, as we were talking earlier, that you can actually get stuff done in your community as commissioners and mayors. You work with your neighbors, you work with local nonprofits, you work with, you know, advocacy groups to really set policy and change your community in many good ways to make it a better place. It's a lot easier to do it in Traverse City than it is in Lansing or in Washington.
Yeah, but even so, though, that said, for people who might wonder how to take that first step, what did you do first in Traverse City to get involved?
Oh, at first I was volunteering. I was volunteering for the Old Mission Conservancy, and, you know, with land protection issues. I sort of sat in on Human Rights Commission meetings and dealt with, you know, diversity protections for all people in our community, because when I moved here it was still pretty homogenous and pretty white, and I'm an out gay man, so it was difficult at first to leave metro East Coast cities where diversity kind of wasn't a thing anymore. I mean, it's still women's issues, gay issues we're finding are still big issues, but it was hard moving to a small northern community that just didn't have the exposure to diversity. And so working with various groups and like-minded people to help push diversity or push environmental protection and that kind of thing was where I got started. And then, you know, I was very instrumental in getting the wind generator up on M72, pushing for renewable energy. I did argue a very large development as a citizen on Front Street, which would have been the largest building in Mass, a 4-story parking deck with 4 stories of luxury condominiums on top. The old Ferris project, one of the first development projects we fought. And after doing a successful referendum to put it on the ballot, people kept saying, "You should run for city commission." Meanwhile, I had volunteered and got on the Parks and Rec Commission. I've been in Parks and Rec for 8 years, just because, parks and outdoor activities are really important to most of us that live here. I mean, most of us live here because of our natural environment, because of the natural resources around us.
So a good way to get involved is just to start out volunteering, and people are always looking for volunteers.
Right, and pick an issue.
And then meanwhile, you educate yourself.
Right.
Because when you first come to a town, you need to immerse yourself kind of in the history, and so that you know what you're dealing with. You can't step in and change things without having that context. And volunteering can help build that.
And it was very hard at first, because to get involved politically in this town years ago, you had to be born from the soils of Grand Traverse County. Even though my family has been coming here and paying the taxes and putting kids through school since the 30s, we still were considered outsiders. And
so kind of a bioregional nepotism.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think, but you prove yourself through your involvement. You, like I've said to you before, that you have to be able to walk into a crowded room and be able to walk up to every single person and strike up a conversation. You can't really be a wallflower when it comes to politics. I mean, you can, but I think you'll be more successful if you're willing to communicate. I mean, as we spoke earlier as well, that I was raised by a conservative family, but I'm not conservative anymore, but it doesn't preclude me from walking into the Republican Women's Luncheon or whatever and talking issues, because we all share a community, we all share certain values together.
And it's, at the local level, it isn't so much, it can be political, but it's more issue-centric. And I can say, when I first met Jim, might have been the first time we met, was when I was complaining about something. I mean, you know, because I'm particularly protective about central neighborhood. And so I can't remember which the issue was. Might have been beta buses on our street or something. And a neighbor and I, who both were upset, invited Jim over for coffee. And we sat.
And we sat in the backyard and we had coffee.
And we talked about what are the problems as we saw them and what might be some solutions. And Jim was such a great listener. See, I think that's another key. You need to be social, but you need to be able to listen in a neutral way. A supportive, I want to hear your story, but neutral way. And, you know, since then I've come to him with various complaints, but I was so impressed. For one thing, he would respond to my email. Imagine that, a member of government responding to my individual concern, and then to make the effort to come over and just talk with us. That's pretty special.
I get the feeling, though, that in public service, that's somewhat rare,
My experience.
and certainly, but it is also incredibly valued by the people that you interact with. That's one of the ways we actually make inroads.
Well, you start out getting involved with having to convince people to vote for you. So you have to go out into your community and talk to lots of people. And not only sell yourself, but sell yourself based on your values and philosophies for how we grow our community. And I think through my activism and through my involvement, I got to be known by many different people across many different groups. I mean, just because I'm more of a liberal and less of a conservative, I have conservative people come up to me all the time and say, we don't always agree on things, but we value that you're at the table. You know, we share many common interests. So it's about, like you said, listening. And we're not going to always agree. And then once we take all the information that we've gathered through the studies and through the communicating with our neighbors and our friends and our business groups or development groups, we have to sit back and decide where we're going to land when it actually comes onto a city agenda to vote on. And it's a very challenging thing. We all agree that sometimes we're sitting up there, we don't know how we're going to vote until the vote happens.
Yeah.
It's a very challenging thing because we have so much information, and 50% of the time people love you, and 50% of the time people hate you. So, and it's gotten it's
And no matter
hard.
what decision you make, you're going to enrage somebody.
Yeah, right.
So, and that's always been one of my concerns about taking leadership roles is how do you grapple with that what you called vulnerability? How do you, I mean, I think that's one of the things that people hold back from taking on public services because of that. How do you deal with that?
Well, I mean, in the beginning of my getting involved, people called and talked to each other. Now, with this advent of social media and all the conveniences we have with our devices, so much is, people snipe at you online.
Yeah.
I mean, the Ticker or the Record Eagle or various news sites, the comment section, which they all say don't read the comments. I read the comments. I mean, because you kind of want to see what people are thinking. And sometimes I do respond privately to a few people, just sort of saying, hey, we've never met. You have a concern. You've said some interesting things about me. Why don't we meet for coffee and talk about this? And that either, like I said, either quiets them up and shuts them up and they don't ever get back to you again, or they actually meet with you and realize, wow, you're not so bad. You're willing to talk things out. But it is hard. You really have the face-to-face is so important. And in today's world with social media, it's so one way, and that's kind of destroying things.
Yeah.
And people listen to what news program they want to listen to and base their opinions on certain values that news source shares. Well, we need to listen to it all and share with it all and talk and realize that we all can come to common ground somewhere and work it out. So But it is difficult. You have to, your skin gets really thick pretty quick from your first meeting because people are, you all watch meetings. The public commenters sometimes are pretty pointed and pretty direct and sometimes mean. And you just have to sit there and smile and say thank you. And that's part of what you have to do. But I think that was part of my social upbringing, where when we were kids, you know, we wanted to go out and party with our buddies and get out of town, but mom's having a cocktail party, you know, so we had to walk into the room before we left the house. And say, oh, hello, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, how are you? And, oh, how's the weather? Oh, how's your, you know, your daughter, blah, blah. And we had to do the social interaction, and then we can leave. So, but my parents raised us to interact, to ask questions, and to not just be a wallflower. I have many friends today that have raised children that are just sitting in the corner on their devices playing games and don't interact. And that's their choice, but they're not going to go places in the world if they don't communicate and don't talk to people. Your personality is going to get you the job. Your personality is going to make the action that you're pushing forward happen. You've got to be outgoing enough to really understand and take the issue to a new height and communicate it. So,
and part of, and I've lived in Traverse City long enough now, and to know that you're going to win some and you're going to lose some. I mean, the issue that you might think is just so critical, and if this doesn't work, it doesn't work. And life goes on. And still things, other kinds of improvements can get made. You can accommodate. I think being in public service must be learning how to win, but also learning how to lose some.
It takes years.
Yes.
And we all get elected, and we roll up our sleeves. We're going to get all this stuff done. We're going to make, and you realize, one, in politics or in government, it takes years sometimes to get certain things accomplished. And two, you have to take the good with the bad. You win some, you lose some. And then you really have to back off and then maybe wait a few months, a few years, and then reintroduce it with more information and make it work. But like it's a time thing. It takes a lot of time to convince people, and our opinions have all changed. I mean, you get involved, and you know we on city council or on city commission or other, but we have studies, we have engineered plans, we have so much more information and budgets to sort through rather than just being a citizen that has a concern with an issue. We have to balance it out with a budget and balance it out with professional advice and code and ordinance and all that. So it's all one of those big shuffle things. I mean, there's a lot of research that goes into everything. Like people say, we meet every Monday night. We get a packet of almost 200 pages every Thursday dumped on us that we need to review and get our questions answered. And a lot of the consent items that we have, purchasing of gas and trucks and that kind. Those are issues that just are regular, that you don't really have to focus a whole lot on that. But on some of these development projects, on some of these zoning changes and ordinance amendments and tree ordinances and such, there's a lot of information and there's a lot of opinion. And so you have to come up with how you're gonna, what kind of questions you're gonna ask, and then how you're gonna vote. And in our world, everything needs to be done in the public eye. I mean, we can't really do, we do a little, based on, Open Meetings Acts, we can only meet with so many people outside of an open meeting. I mean, we can all meet with our constituents and our neighbors and our friends and our groups, but we can't meet as a whole without posting a meeting and inviting the public to be there. And so that's where it's challenging, because even our email and text communication is FOIA-able. So we do have to be very careful about what we do. We're seeing from other organizations in town how controversial that's come and that kind of thing. So it's sometimes hard to step back and realize that we can't just talk to anybody at any time about any issue. But you just have to show your willingness to you care about your community, and that you really want to study the issue. And then I throw it out there to groups all the time. Okay, we have this issue coming up. What do you think? I mean, I want to hear from citizens. I mean, we all know that we all have come at the 11th hour to fight issues, and that's fine. And sometimes you can kill an issue, but it's better if you come from the beginning, because everything is public. People just have to be able to pay attention. We don't market ourselves well. We don't advertise well. That's a problem with government. But if you go to a city website or you go to a politician's website, you'll see that a certain meeting's been posted. You sometimes have to rifle through the agenda, then rifle through the attachments to figure out what the issue is. But then come to the meeting, come to the ad hoc, come to the committee, and then come and share your piece with us at a regular meeting. So,
I recently had a conversation with a friend about what's happening on the national level, and she says this is a time to recommit as citizens to our regions, you know, as citizens, and to do the homework, to learn the causes, to learn the issues, and to really dig in instead of being so reactionary to the tone that is so often based on fear, which is set on our national news.
And I mean, I'm one that believes in science. I am one that believes in protecting our natural resources and our environment. I live in Traverse City because of our freshwater resources, because of all that wonderful property that we have out at Sleeping Bear Dunes, because of all the Tart Trail and all these wonderful things. And that's kind of what happened to me sitting at home when our current leader of this country withdrew from the Paris Climate Accords. I was like, we all sat there and said, wait a minute, we have been working for years with our local community groups, our environmental groups, to realize that we want to give this planet to our future generations. We need to be protecting it. Well, that's when I realized there was this group called Climate Mayors. And it's a bunch of mayors that just said, okay, the president has withdrawn us from the Paris Accords, but that doesn't mean we locally have to follow that. We can continue with our 100% renewable goals. We can continue with our stormwater management programs. We can continue with our conservation movements to protect open space and hope. I mean, we all want to ban plastics and straws and all that, but Lansing has created some law that we can't ban bans. You know, we can't. They banned us to do bans, so we can't ban plastic bags. You can't ban straws, which is Lansing's tied our hands, but at least we try to engage.
Pay attention to the trees.
Yeah. But on the local level, like I said, we can get things done.
Yeah.
Mayors and city councils can get things done. And hopefully, if enough communities do that, and then our representation in Lansing, our representatives will take that to Lansing, and then maybe we can take over those issues in Lansing, and then eventually take it on to the federal government. So,
what do you feel are some of the significant accomplishments that have been made locally since you've been involved with this? Like, what's your proud list?
Well, on my proud list is our 100% renewable energy goal, and really saying that we can do this. We can become, 100% renewable, which we have, and we met our goal ahead of time, and showed other communities that they can do that. I mean, I remember back when we were getting rid of Big Rock.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we had one of the oldest. It was a test nuclear facility up near Charlevoix, and we worked hard to get rid of that plant. I mean, I know it's still glowing, but at least we made ourselves a nuclear-free zone. And I've been anti-nuclear power since I was in college. I mean, it's a resource, but it's a resource that the waste lasts for almost ever. I mean, so that was a challenge. But that, our non-discrimination ordinance, bringing our policies in order to protect the LGBT community, our Native American community, our people of color. I mean, to have a more comprehensive plan that helps support people in our community, because we're up north. We're pretty white. I mean, we're pretty Christian. I mean, I grew up in an area of the country where, Jews and Muslims and Christians, and they all kind of lived together, and you just dealt with it. But those are the big issues. But also, how we grow our city. I mean, part of what I've always supported was we always included character in our master plan to protect the character of our city. And I know some people think that's a little bit provincial and all, but I think that's the reason why a lot of people want to be here, come here and vacation here. I mean, a lot of us are from family that we left urban areas to vacation here. And they didn't leave an urban area to go to another urban area. They came here because we've got this great little town, and we've got all these great little hamlets all around here that have a character, a small town character to them. I'm not saying I'm anti-growth by any means. I think we can grow our community, but at a scale that still keeps us viable to what people come here for.
And why we stay here, right?
And why we stay here. And that's the controversy that we're fighting over now with tall buildings and density and stopping sprawl. And it's like those are all very complicated issues.
Short-term rentals.
But I still think we can grow within a parameter of keeping the character that draws so many people here. And through Michael Moore and the State Theater and Wharton at the Opera House, and of course always Interlochen and even the Old Town Playhouse, and now the casinos with all the entertainment that they offer, we've really upped our game on cultural amenities. I said when I first came here, and I got in trouble once because I said when I first moved here in 89, it was kind of a boring little town. I mean, at 5 o'clock, there was nothing to do. If you didn't go to Union Street Station or UNI or Modes for dinner, that was your only opportunity for outlets downtown. Interlochen was always been an outlet, but you had to drive there, or driving up to Sutton's Bay to the Bay Theater. That was our art house. Well, we've changed that where we have vibrancy downtown. Now at 10 o'clock at night, there's people, there's things to do, there's stores open. It is more like Ann Arbor. It is more like a larger community. So we've come a long way because we've got this culture. I always say we have the small town character with big town amenities, which is what makes Traverse City so nice.
But it's so precious. We have to protect it. I mean, that finding that balance.
Well, the aesthetics are also a role in here. I think that what you said about scale is something that we forget. We talked about this when we were interviewing about the trees, is that there's a scale that is aesthetically pleasing where people sit in a space and they actually spend more money.
Yeah.
If the aesthetics are
That's
in
right.
place.
Where there's more trees,
that's right.
people spend more money downtown.
And we have beautiful tree-lined streets in Traverse City.
And views, and that all nurtures our economy. And if we lose that to unthinking development, like you, I agree with growth, but unthinking growth is devastating to the aesthetics of a community.
Yeah, which we're talking setback requirements right now is one of our issues. And Planning Commission spent some time on this, and they thought this was a no-brainer because we went through that whole A Street revitalization, and we asked property owners for a little bit of easement so we could have a separate cycle track and a sidewalk and a tree lawn. We need more space because we wanted to make that more inviting for pedestrians and moving people in cars, maybe having more sidewalk cafes and that kind of thing. But now all of a sudden, the setback issues become controversial. It's like, we want more space from vehicles because I think the Hotel Indigo, we've become kind of a joke at planning conferences now because we ended up building that hotel too close to a highway with high speeds, and we only have a very narrow place for pedestrians. And when you have to walk between a very tall building and a speeding car, it's not a comfortable experience.
Right.
Has 8th Street become, are people upset about the sidewalks and the bike trail?
I've heard mostly positive.
I have too, I was just going to say.
I mean, I know the traffic backs up at certain times, and a lot of it's because of the Boardman light. We're not going to see that till probably April now because they're on back order, which I didn't know these things were on back order. But I think in general, it's slowed traffic down. It's made it much more pedestrian friendly, and hopefully we're going to spur some development along there and to maybe have it be more like downtown. Have 3-4-story mixed-use buildings, more walkable opportunities for people. And
I think the 8th Street redevelopment is a good example of how much work it takes to make a decision about what to do with 8th Street. I mean, years and discussions and revisits, and now it's finally accomplished. And I think most all the comments I've heard have been positive. And I even have to laugh at myself. I'm driving on 8th Street and I think, well, these lanes are a little narrow. It means I have to slow down. Bingo. Yeah. I have to slow down. And it's okay to slow down.
And it was a complicated project. And it wasn't just a paving and narrowing lanes and adding the infrastructure. It was, we had failing sewer and water lines under the road that had to be fixed. So we had to balance all these budgets, figure out how to pay for it all, and get it done in all summer. But it was a big project. It took us many years to figure out how we're going to pay for it because it's a $4 million project. I mean, I always say my grandfather's generation built everything, my parents' generation ignored it all, and now our generations have to fix it. And in our world, everything's millions of dollars.
Right.
And our dollars are tax dollars. Our dollars are people's money, and that's what we have, and we have set budgets. That's what we have to fix everything, build everything new. We have limited budgets. I mean, we have an $18 million city budget, and currently we have a $19, $20 million parking deck in our future. I mean, is that the wisest thing to do? I'm just saying, we have annual budgets that have to do so much. I mean, we can't keep squeezing water from a rock to pay for these things. I mean, we have lots of funding opportunities, and that's stuff we probably won't get into, but it's a challenge. It's a challenge because we only have so much money to do so much work.
So why do you keep doing this, Jim? It's a lot of headaches.
It is a lot of headaches.
A lot of work.
You get something out of it. You get to talk to great people. I mean, frankly, when you call me, it's like okay, I didn't think about that, or, oh, I can get that answer for you. I mean, it's about communicating. It's about knowing your neighbors. It's about being part of your community. I mean, I get something out of it. I mean, I get it because I'm a social person, you know, and I like a lot of it. I mean, it's a challenge, like we talked about the social media and the negative comments you get, but
And no privacy.
I believe in my community. Well, that's it.
You can't go to Myers
you can't go to
without-
the grocery store without seeing a zillion people that you know, which is really, that's the great part about living in a small town.
Yeah.
Is you get to know your neighbors. I mean, I tell this story. I went to Saugatuck with my partner once, and we were sitting at the bar waiting for our table at a restaurant, and I heard the person next to me say, "I hear the mayor from Traverse City's here this weekend." And I was like, "How do they know that?" I mean,
So much for privacy.
or when I'm visiting my mother in Naples, Florida, and walking through the farmer's market, and you bump into somebody from Traverse City, you're like, this is kind of weird.
Yeah.
But it just shows you how small our world's become.
Yeah.
And that we all travel and we all communicate. But it's just, we have something great. We get to live in Traverse City, and we have a really great town. I mean, we've hit all the top 10 lists. Pure Michigan has advertised us to the nth degree, and everybody wants to be here. But I want to keep it special for everyone. I want the next generation to be able to come here and enjoy it, live here, work here, vacation here, and have what I have. I feel very fortunate that I got to spend, early life, 60s, 70s, 80s, growing up in the summer here, and enjoying what up north was.
You said to me when we met earlier, something that I just love, and we talk about all the problems and the issues and the controversies, and you said, yeah, but we have all the right problems.
That's what I say to
Yeah,
people every day.
that's a
We
gorgeous
fight
attitude.
over all the right problems in Traverse City. I mean, yes, we have opioid problems. Yes, we have homeless problems, and all the different issues. But we have plenty of people that are willing to talk about it and work it out. I think more recently I've been pushing that we need to start having more regional discussions about these issues,
Yes,
because
for
it's
sure.
not just Traverse City. It's not just Sutton's Bay. It's not just Kalkaska. It's not just Kingsley. Our issues are regional because we are the hub. Everybody commutes and comes here for a reason.
Yes.
We have to start talking together how we're going to deal with homeless, how we're going to deal with affordable housing, how we're going to deal with the drug issues that we have and the overconsumption of alcohol. So, but it's something that we have to do by communicating and supporting each other's village and town councils and talking, even with the county commission. I mean, we have all these layers of government in Michigan. That's what's so hard about Michigan is we've got township government, we have municipal
That's
government,
right.
we have county government, we have state government, we have federal government. I get why certain developers and certain people have problems because there's so many approval processes that you have to go to get anything done. So it is hard, but that's a Michigan thing. We can't control that, so.
But we still have the right problems.
Yeah, the right problems.
We have the right problems because we're a popular and desirable
Yes.
and really wonderful place to be.
And it's our natural resources.
Yeah.
It's this water. I mean, that's why we all
Yeah.
support flow. That's why we've all been supporting so many efforts to make sure that this freshwater resource is there for us. We have, close to a third of the freshwater resource in the world. I feel it's our obligation to protect it, because we can't live without water. And we're seeing what's happening to large freshwater resources around the world. People have their eyes on us, and
Yeah.
I want to make sure it's available to us because that water is life.
Yes.
And
it's a
so it's super,
beautiful way to
and
look
our
at it.
ecosystem is changing with climate change, with pollution, with microbeads and plastics, with invasive species. There's so many weird things happening, and it's really hard. I mean, I am involved with an international, binational group of Canadian mayors and Great Lakes mayors,
Really?
and called the Cities Initiative, Great Lakes Cities Initiative, where we're all mindful of the economy that the lakes provide us, but also we need to protect it. I mean, invasive species, shipping and all the stuff that they bring in, storage of nuclear waste near the shore. I mean, all and the phosphorus runoffs from the farm fields. We try to lobby and push for policy on state and national level through this group because mayors can get things done, like I said.
Mayors can
Yeah.
So.
Well, we need to wrap this up, I think. I think our timing, and I've gotten so involved in the conversation.
I know
didn't
it's
pay
been
attention to my
pretty
watch.
wonderful. I just have a question. What is it that you see in the future that is sort of just starting to perk on your radar, but hasn't come to talk about yet? People aren't talking about it yet. You seem like the kind of person who would see that.
Well, I mean, I think it's growth. I mean, growth is always in the background, but how are we going to grow? I mean, with climate change, I mean, southern climates are going to get hotter and possibly flooding. More and more people are going to start wanting to move back. I mean, how are we going to accommodate growth while maintaining a character? How are we going to support our aging population of boomers who are going to be the largest population in the world?
People.
And we need nursing, and we need care, we need facilities. I was actually just talking to a developer the other night at a function saying, you've got this big piece of land, what about some sort of extended care facility for seniors? I mean, I know the young people don't want to think about that, but you all get old, and we're all dealing with aging parents, and it's a need, and we're going to need that service, like the building a new senior center. The one that we have right now is rather rickety and old and falling apart. Well, let's build something that will service us and provide great entertainment and keep people involved. So, I mean, growth and how we protect our resources. I mean, I think they're all on the radar, but they're all coming at us pretty fast because things are changing so fast. And so we have to step up our game to figure out how do we protect our water?
Be proactive.
How do we grow our community but also protect the character? I mean, with this next census coming out, I'm sure we're going to see huge growth in the region. Traverse City probably wouldn't grow that much, but how do we get people in and out of town better? We have road issues, we have parking issues, we have, and we're challenged by geography here. We have all of our lakes and streams and rivers and historic neighborhoods. We can't just build roads to accommodate traffic. So I think we're going to have to start changing mindsets where, okay, we might have to leave 10 minutes early. We have to drop the kids off at school. Well, we might have to leave early, or we might need to park 3 blocks from the school and not expect to be in a car line for 40 minutes, and maybe just get out of your car and walk your kid to school. I mean, little things. I mean, I think we're going to have to change the way that we do our daily routine to help accommodate others and make it so it all works.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Jim Carruthers, I'm so grateful
Yes,
thank
that
you very
you're
much.
willing
Yes,
to
of
be
course,
involved
yes.
in all this. It's just inspiring.
Well,
and,
it's-
It is.
It's an honor to be involved. It's an honor to have great people to be involved with, and I follow you all on your creative endeavors. I love hearing your piece every whenever I forget when you're coming on, but it's nice to hear. And I know you've published a bunch of books, and you do a lot with the Writers Series and
with the Michigan
Writers Series and all that. So I mean, we've come a long way culturally here, which is a good thing because we attract really great people here.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a lot of people that have quietly been coming here for years. We have astronauts, we have retired politicians, we have so many layers of interesting people here, and it's great that we're starting to engage more and hear more and be a really attractive place for everybody.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for what you do and for your words, which I think will encourage others to get involved.
Sure.
Thanks.
Good. Thank you.
And we'll be right back.
Hi, and welcome back to Ideas Live, where we've just wrapped up a very lively, substantive conversation with Jim Carruthers, the mayor of Traverse City, on the subject of public service.
And that was astonishing. What he has done, the breadth of his work, the depth of his work is truly impressive. And this whole idea of public service, I was just fascinated and realized how important it was. He said that we start with volunteerism. And that, I realized, made perfect sense. That whole progression of you choose an area or you choose an issue, you volunteer in that issue, you build your knowledge, and as you become adept at negotiating within that issue, you become a candidate for leadership.
Sure.
That is amazing.
You become informed, you become connected to others. You learn about how things get done.
Yeah.
And anybody can do that. I mean, you don't have to, initially you don't have to run for an election. You just say, hey, you need some help here? And almost every organization will say for sure. And it's very satisfying. But I am so grateful that the people of Jim's caliber are willing to step in and do this very hard work. And take the criticism and have no privacy. When you're in the grocery store, everyone's bringing you their particular concerns. I've been with Jim at groups of people, and everyone comes to him with their particular concern, and he listens.
And that speaks. You know, he talked so effectively about protecting and maintaining the character of the city, but in many ways, he's also talking about the character of the people.
Yes.
And the idea of character. I mean, that's something we overlook, I think, sometimes, is when people are all caught up in the issues, they forget that we're also reflecting an internal character. And I felt like on some levels he wanted to nurture that as well. You know, that whole idea of the internal character of the community.
And he still talks about knowing his neighbors, knowing people.
Right.
We still, in spite of all the growth, we're still a small town in a way, and a small region. And I think it's just so important to try to preserve that and cultivate that.
He seems to have our backs on that one.
I'm
Yeah,
so
he really does. I'm so grateful.
Good conversation. Thank you
Indeed.
very much for joining us.
Thanks for being with us.